Hey friends, welcome back to the Happy Homeowner Podcast, Outdoor Edition. My name is Dan Keller, and I believe that owning a home is the largest and most valuable asset we have, second to our time. As a veteran mortgage professional, investor, and Puget Sound angler, my commitment is to bring you content each week that will fill each one of these buckets in your life. Jump on board with us today, enjoy the show, and we'll see you back in the marina. Hey, welcome back to the Happy Homeowner Podcast, Outdoor Edition. I'm Dan Keller, and I'm sitting here today with my good friend, Connor Martinis, owner of John's Sporting Goods here in Everett. Man, both of us, we're just talking before the podcast today. We're just dying to get back out on the salt. It is January. We're itching to fish for some salmon, and unfortunately, we don't have a winter blackmouth season that's open right now. We can go up to Canada, which a couple of our buddies have gone up to Canada, which I'm waiting for my boat to be done, and we're heading up there soon. Yeah. But in the meantime, what we're going to do today is we're going to get you fired up for the Marine Area 10 Winter Blackmouth Opener. Connor's going to talk about, like when we do these podcasts, we always start with regulations, and then we go into some tips and some tactics, and then in my opinion, in the Puget Sound, one of the best winter blackmouth anglers that I know. He's a fishing guide as well. Ben Rosenbach with Mixed Metals Outdoors. Ben's actually on the river guiding today for steelhead, but we're going to go and meet up with him later today. We're going to get the camera outside of the studio. We're going to sit down with him on his boat, and we're going to go over some tackle and some tactics that he used. You know, when they had the, I think it was the Everett Blackmouth Derby. Yep. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ben won it. This is before he was a fishing guide. I think he won it in like 2018, 2019. I think he won it like back-to-back years, right?
Yeah, he had a couple good years.
He had a couple good years out there. The guy knows the Puget Sound relative to salmon, and so we're going to go pick his brain. We've done that before. Hey, but good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
I wish we were out on the water.
I know. Yeah, we were just saying it's been a while since we've been on the saltwater. That's my bread and butter. So
did you get all the hunting out of your system?
I got all the hunting out. I hunted for 18 days, which I could have hunted more, but yep, got my bull elk, so I'm happy. We're eating good at the house. So are
you gonna mount that thing and put it in the shop?
No, it's at my house. I got a European mount, so it's sitting in my house, and we get to look at it every day. It's pretty cool. It's
beautiful.
It's a beautiful animal. Yeah. Yes, it is. My first one, lucky.
And you shot that with. Did you shoot it with it? What'd you shoot that with? It wasn't a rifle.
I shot it with my shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sitting in a tree stand.
Yeah, unreal. Well, so you got hunting out of your system. Yep. We're gonna prep. We just don't know when, right? Because it's kind of up in the air. We were thinking March.
You're getting mixed reviews here. Yeah, I'm hearing March 16th. I've heard March 10th. I've heard April 1st. I've heard April 11th. Okay. So we don't really know. I think in the book it says March 16th. Okay. But they can always change that, and that's what I think is going to happen. So the later they push it, the more apt you are to catch a springer, which in my book is, in my opinion, that's what I would prefer over a blackmouth. But at this point, I'm ready to start fishing in the saltwater. It's been a little while, so we got to get back on the boat.
We do. So
new boat.
No, we got a new one coming. Yeah. So I ended up selling my Blue North River a few months ago. In fact, I put a deposit down on just a little bit bigger. It's about 1.25 foot bigger, 30-foot Duckworth, big old white, beautiful Duckworth. And we can talk later about why I switched from North River to Duckworth. But I loved my North River, that beautiful blue boat. But there's some things that when I bought that boat 3 years ago, there were some things that I wanted on that boat that I was unable to because of supply chain issues and coming out of, the economic shutdown with COVID. So I figured now's the time to do it right. So we ended up doing that. So that actually is getting bottom painted in 2 weeks, and we'll have her in the water just right in time for winter blackmouth season. But we spent a lot of time in the north end, right? You're out of Everett. I'm out of Everett, live in the Edmonds area, Richmond Beach area. So I fish a lot in Marine Area 10. Yep. So as far as regulations, let's talk about when winter blackmouth season actually opens up. It's a specific area, right? Yep. So we're not all of the Puget Sound. So let's talk about where it's open and some of those spots. Yeah. And then we'll talk regulation as well.
Perfect. Yeah, so Area 10 begins, it's south of the Edmonds Marina, which a lot of people mistake that, and they believe it's above the Edmonds Marina, but it's actually on the very south end of the Edmonds Marina. There's a big marker that you could see, and it goes straight over to the north end of Kingston Point. So that's the most northern point of Area 10. And that line, Area 10 goes all the way down to Seattle. So we focus on the north part of Area 10. Your Jeff Head, Richmond Beach, Kingston. That's the very northern part of Area 10. And we found a lot of success there. That's kind of that's where we like to hang out.
Okay.
Pretty normal Chinook rules. You have a minimum size of 22 inches. Your daily limit is 1 per angler, 1 per license. And of course, those fins have to be clipped. So it has to be a hatchery fish, which resident blackmouth are primarily all hatchery fish. You'll get some of them where they misclip or they don't clip them at all. There's always a percentage of those that are in the system to be sure that we still have some around and we don't wipe them all out. But yeah, those are all fish that we make and we put into the system.
Okay. And so let's focus, and I'll go back real quickly. That line, if you think, go right past, so just south of the Edmonds Marina, there's a dog park. And I want to say that line is right down there, right about the dog park at the end of the marina, and it goes just straight over, connect the dot to the Kingston line, Kingston Ferry, right?
You got it.
Okay.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So we do spend a lot of time over there fishing Jeff Head.
That's probably one of the more famous ones, or the most popular for sure. I call it the possession bar of Area 10. It's a huge bank that comes off of the mainland there, and it's facing east and west, so it's a little bit different than possession. But when you get big bars like that, you get lots of bait that hang out there, and that attracts all of these blackmouth. These blackmouth aren't going anywhere; they're staying in the Puget Sound. So if you can find like last year when we fished Area 10, the amount of bait on Jeff Head was pretty unbelievable. There was a lot.
And they're eating. They're over there. They're feeding. That's it. So you're fishing just like you would a summer Chinook.
100%.
You're fishing you're fishing where the bait is. And so we don't know when the opener is, but I can tell you that you and I will be fishing the opener.
We will be there.
And we will be at Jeff Head.
Probably be at Jeff Head.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's nice too. You could fish Jeff Head on either tide. So if the tide's coming in or out, it doesn't really matter. We're just looking for when the water's slowing down before and after these tides. And that's when we ambush.
So let's talk about that real briefly. Because we have a really great podcast coming up, you guys, with Connor and Joey Pyburn, the Outdoor Line. And we're going to talk about how to plan your trip. And I didn't learn this as an angler until probably 4, 5, 6 years or longer into fishing and going out. But planning your fishing trip or your day on the water has a lot to do. Now we've got great technology with some of these apps, but obviously weather and wind play a factor for safety, but tides. So when you're fishing a bar like Jeff Head, let's talk about that. So we don't have it in front of us, but let's assume that we've got, a high tide or an outgoing tide starting at about 7 a.m. Where would you like to fish Jeff Head on an outgoing tide?
I like to be on the President's Point side of it, so the north end of Jeff Head.
So Jeff Head comes out, it comes east, it comes out into the middle area there, south to southeast. So you like to be out on that point, trolling north to northwest.
You can troll kind of either way. The water's going to move perpendicular to your boat, so it's going to be traveling under your boat, either which way. So it doesn't matter so much there. I typically am a guy who trolls with the tide. But there it doesn't matter. You can kind of troll both ways because you're not bucking the tide if you're trolling either way, either towards the center of the channel there or back towards President's Point. But President's Point's a really good marker. It's a little point that comes out, and that north end of Jeff Head from President's Point out towards the middle of the channel, it's almost directly in line with that point.
Cool.
So it's the easiest way for us to tell anglers, like, hey, this is a really good spot to look for. You find that 90 to 120 feet to start out, and even last year, as the tide progresses. So if there's a low tide at 7 a.m., I want to be there an hour before it, and I want to fish an hour after it. It all depends on the size of the tide. The bigger the tide, the longer the water's going to move after the tide change. So that all plays into effect. But when we're talking about tides, it's mainly the current is what we're focusing on. How fast the water's moving, When is it slowing down to the optimal speed? In my opinion, it's 0.5 to 1.2 to 1.5 miles an hour. That's the optimal speed that these salmon really like to feed at. And I was showing you, Navionics is great. You can go at hour by hour, and it's going to tell you the speed of the current and which way it's going. So if I'm a guy who doesn't have a lot of time, the tide's at 7. Well, it says here that the water's going to be moving at 7:30 to 8:30. It's going to be from 0.5 to 1.2. That's the optimal time I want to be there.
That's your time. Yeah. And that's part of this upcoming podcast we're doing on timing your trip and planning your trip. These are just the little things that great anglers do better than others. They don't just fish for 4 hours. They fish specifically. They get their best gear in the water at these particular times, and they're fishing the best spots, and they're searching for bait. Now, these fish, these salmon, these Chinook are feeding. So let's say you go out there, Connor, and we're not finding any bait. We're not getting hit. What would you do?
I moved locations. Like I said, last year was really an eye opener for us. We were fishing the north end of Jeff Head, so I'll call it the President's Point Troll.
Okay.
We're in our normal 100 feet of water, and I get a call from Uncle John. Uncle John's out in 250, 300 feet of water, and we're like, what the hell are you doing out there? Well, all the bait, the tide, it was the later part of the outgoing tide, all that bait was getting pulled out into that deeper water. And he's out there fishing suspended. He's not fishing the bottom, and he's saying he's catching one after another. And there's an acre of bait out there. But if I'm on that troll and I'm not finding bait, I'm going to look for another spot to find bait. I'm generally going to look in the direction of which way the water's moving. So, like I said, we started in 100 feet, nothing's there. The next troll we're going to do is going to be 120. The next troll is going to be 150, and before you know it, you'll run into the bait. There's always bait on Jeff Head. You'll find it in 100 feet to 300 feet. And in the wintertime, that's a lot of the times when you're finding these acres and acres of bait. We got a bunch of herring in the Puget Sound right now, getting ready to spawn in the spring. So you find a lot of them there.
So that's it. You have to hear this. What Connor just said, there's bait out there. There's going to be bait at Jeff Head. That's what makes it such a great fishery. And so if you are trolling the typical lines, like he just said, and you're not seeing any bait, you're not marking any fish, go find it. So what are you looking for? We're looking for seagulls. We're looking for, like you just said, you're going to follow the current off the bar, and maybe it's getting pushed off one of the sides of the bar, right? So maybe keep an eye open for that one weld craft that's out in the middle of nowhere in 300-400 feet of water, you know, where John's out there, where there's a boat out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe they're up to something. So these are the little things that, and then having some anglers out on the water. That's another thing about this John Sporting Goods group that you've created on Facebook. You've got guys that are willing to share, you know, when they're actually out on the water, guys texting you, when you're out there, you're doing updates saying, hey, there's a ton of bait here, or hey, we had to go out here to find them. So that's one of the things I love about your community, but sometimes you got to go out and find it. That's why I asked you that question, because I think it's really important, because I've been out there before, God, I'm fishing where I've fished in the past, and it's not worked. There's nothing there. It's a ghost town.
Well, and then the next week I fished with my employee Dan Vanucci, and we were fishing the incoming tide. So now the tide's doing the opposite of what it was on the opener. So what do? I go to the other side of Jeff Head. And we trolled for a good hour without finding any bait. We're finding little pods, but we didn't find that mecca of bait. And before you know it, we see, you know, I'm always looking at boats. If there's nets out, if there's guys, fighting fish, I'm always trying to key in onto that. Now, I never try to follow people, but that's an indication that there's probably bait over there, and there's blackmouth there. And before you know it, we see a guy way at the end of, you know, he's out towards the middle of the channel. He's out in 200 feet of water, and he's reeling in fish. So we begin to make our troll, and before we were turning around short and we were doing these short little trolls. And I said, hey, let's just extend this troll and go out towards the middle of the channel. And we found bait and we caught fish.
And you were on the south part.
End of Jeff Head.
Yeah, the south
It would be like the southeast corner.
Southeast corner.
We do really good on the south, you know, the very south end, but kind of tucked closer into, I don't know what island that is, but the mainland there. I generally stay away from that southeast corner, but there was bait and fish there, so we went there and we caught fish.
So another thing that you and I are going to start doing, which we've already done this, and I think you're going to find a lot of value in this, is we're going to get really specific, and these are just 5 to 10 minute chunks, 5 to 10 minute videos. So your Uncle John did a great job writing the Fisherman's Guide, the Fisherman's Manual, and he had maps in there. Well, it's 2025, so we're gonna make it a little bit more modern. So you and I are gonna do these 5 to 10 minute videos, for example, on exactly where to fish on Jeff Head or exactly where to fish Richmond Beach for these specific type of fish. And we're gonna do it for these different hot spots around the Puget Sound. And so stay tuned for that. We're sharing a little here, but if you really want it, you can just Google John's Sporting Goods Jeff Head maps, and you'll be able to see these videos and these guides that we're going to do. So, okay, so we've got an idea. We found the fish. We know where they're at. We know the dates. We know how big these fish need to be. We're going to go out on the opener. What are you fishing? I think I know the answer to this question, but I think that your listeners and viewers want to see. So we've got some gear here for you.
Really, it all depends on the size of the bait. But I've been doing this long enough to know in the wintertime, pretty much 95% of the time, the size of the bait's relatively similar. It's generally your, red label herring, maybe a little, you'll find some bigger ones if they've been feeding a little. The later in the year, the bigger they're going to get. But yeah, my go-to trusty spoon, this is one of my favorites. It's the Skinny G, and they call it the Killy McGee. It's kind of a nickel green, and it has a blue stripe down the middle. I bend it a little differently than what it comes out of the package, and then I always add a red eye to it. But that one for sure is going on. And then I always pair it with, I use this same flasher from Blackmouth until the end of Coho.
You do.
This same flasher right here. It's the Morning Mist by Pearl Troll. And I put a little, I go with John, he's huge into these orange stripes, so I just carry on the tradition. I put a red stripe right
I had a guy message me the other day saying, hey, where do you get those flashes with the red stripe? And I said, you buy the red stripe down at John's.
That's right.
And you put it on yourself, and you just cut it. You cut 2 strips, and you go on both sides of the blinky. And I can validate that Connor does. He brings a few, he brings this out on my boat, and he's got a couple of setups. He always has a plug. He has a couple of hoochies already tied and a couple of spoons, and the green Killy is the one.
McGee, man, that one's been prime time. But I do like to fish 4-inch plugs. Like this is the 603 4-inch Tomic plug. I've caught a lot of winter blackmouth on that puppy. You usually, which is good, you tend to catch less shakers, so our encounters will go down with this. And generally, if a fish hits this, it's going to be your 22-inch class or bigger. Really fun to fish. You're taking the flasher out of the whole deal, so you're fighting the fish just with this light plug. It's really enjoyable.
Well, since you have one tied up, let's talk about that for guys that want to try a plug, or let's say you go out and you can't keep the shakers off. Now, this is important, you guys, too, because this is the reason why these fisheries get shut down so quickly, is because of the encounters with the smaller Chinooks. So,
for sure.
I know you got a decent amount of leader there. So what size? And how long?
I do an arm's length leader. I use the same exact leader I use for all my spoons. 30-pound Seagar fluorocarbon. This is the one that I find most pliable. It's worked. I've used this for 2 years now. I used to use P-line a lot, but P-line's a lot stouter. And when I'm running these plugs, I want this thing to be as freed up as possible. What happens with these guys is you're pulling it, and it's pulling the nose down, and this thing in the water is just dancing and going all over the place, right? A lot of guys drill these pins out, and it slides up and down the line. What I find the easiest and most successful is I put a split ring right here. So you got the bridge where you would tie to originally. I add a split ring to it. And what that does is that frees up this plug so it can kind of rotate off of that split ring. And it just gives it more action. And I use the same exact hook I put on my spoons. I could probably bump up the size of this, but this is a 3/0 Stinger Siwash owner hook. I always put, I put that on pretty much everything. And then I do a 6-foot leader. I just do my arm's length. I put a chain swivel on one end, and then my plug follows that. And then I'll just clip this right to my sample ball bearing swivel that's already tied to my main line on my reel, and you're fishing. It's super simple.
And then you're going to clip your downrigger. Are you going to do your traditional 15, 20 feet up the line, or does it?
I would do you know, some guys are putting these things 50 feet behind their boat, you know, which
That's
I don't
the
think,
reason why I asked. Yeah, I was kind of taught that too. Yeah.
I don't think you have to quite do 50 feet, but I definitely do it further than I would a flasher.
Okay.
So I'm always like, we do 10 to 12 feet behind our downrigger balls, our flashers are trailing. I would probably do 20 feet, 20 to 25 feet. It gets it back there a little bit. It'll free it up, give it some more, just give you some more line behind that downrigger ball.
There you go.
But you're fishing it the same way, man. I'm dropping the ball, hitting the bottom, bringing it up, and I do that every minute. I want that thing pressed up against the bottom as close as I can without hanging up.
Okay. And you've got another one here, a bigger
This is a
size.
bigger one, yeah. Yeah, this is a 5-inch. And being in April, a 5-inch plug might be the ticket. This is the 530G. This is their purple haze plug. A little bit bigger. If we're fishing and we catch one and I cut it open and there's green label and blue label herring, which probably will be kind of what we're going to be finding if we're fishing in April. Yep. The 5-inch plug's absolutely perfect for that.
Cool.
Same setup. I put a split ring on it. I did put a 4/0 Stinger Siwash hook, so a little bit bigger hook. Same length leader, 30 pound, 6 feet to a chain swivel.
Okay.
But that's, like I said, that's all going to dictate what size the bait is. So in April, we might be running one of those.
I love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we've got, let's go back to your spoon.
Yep.
You might have touched on this, but I might have missed it.
Yeah.
Leader length on your spoons and same type. You're using the same type of leader, 30 pound?
Same leader. I'm using 30 pound orange label Seagar. I'm doing 42 inches from where I tie to. So from the ring to the bottom of this chain swivel, that's 42 inches. Like I said, I put the 3/0 Stinger Siwash hook on here.
So you do switch out the hooks.
Always, no matter what.
Yep.
I'm a huge believer in these Stinger Siwash hooks. Another one the guys really like to use is the Big River hook. They're plenty good. But yeah, this will absolutely go on first for me, no doubt.
So I don't see any ace highs or hoochies. Is that just?
No, you definitely can. I would say that's going to resemble a little bit bigger bait. So yeah, if we're catching green label herring, or our fish are feeding on green label herring, green spatter squid, the OAL 12R squid, the white purple haze 312 needlefish would be an excellent choice. Another spoon that I really like to use is the cookies and cream. This is kind of John's. I mean, the times I fished Blackmouth with John, he has about 12 of these tied up. And he has about 10 of these flashers, the Green Hornet. Yeah. And that's what we fish. We don't change. Even if we're not catching fish and we're in fish, that stays on. And before you know it, we usually find some.
Yeah, and if you go back and listen to any of the podcasts where we did have John Martinis on, there's some really, you got to listen closely because he integrates some hacks through his conversations with us. But you just mentioned that he has, a half a dozen or so of those spoons already pre-tied in a package. And in fact, when I went out with him, they were just on the counter there, and he's changing them out. So he's fishing every 30 minutes to an hour. If he catches a fish, he's changing the hook. Yep. And these hooks come in these 3/0 Stingers. Siwash, they come in a pack. They're easy. Just pop them on, pop them off. Yep. But just little hacks like that. The other thing too that he taught me that we learned through one of these podcasts too is that when he ties up his lures, he doesn't loop up the line. He keeps them unlooped. Well, it's just one little, he doesn't know if it works 100% or not, but it keeps the line straight and it keeps it more uniform in the water. Just little things like that. So I want to encourage you to maybe go back and watch some of those podcasts where we had John and he gives a lot of pro angler tips. Now, kind of are we fishing bait at all out there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Winter Blackmouth is for sure an exception where I'll fish bait. I pretty much do it every year. Like usually the opening day, if you'll probably rerun a spoon, I might start out with some bait.
I'll tell you right now, if you're running Killy, because that would have been my go-to, or this one's my go-to right here, the herring aid looking one. But if you're going with a spoon, I'm going with a plug. So I can already tell you that's what we're gonna. Yeah. If we're fishing together, that's what I'm going for. Yeah. I'd rather have less encounters and hunt for that bigger one. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. If we're fishing in April, we have a really good chance of catching a bigger fish. But yeah, I like running anchovies in the winter for sure. Anchovies work really well. I put them in these helmets. Generally, I'll start off with it behind a flasher, and these are the same I do the same leader length of that I would for a plug, 6 foot leaders. I use 30 pound leader, and I just recently started using these 4/0 These are the Mustad ADX. I think it's addicted fine wire bait hooks. So it's got a little bit fine wire. It hooks into those fish really seamless. The gauge of it doesn't tear up your fish. It's a titanium hook, so they're durable as heck. It's a phenomenal hook. Yeah, we ran them last year, and I ran them in the winter, and I ran them up in the San Juans when we ran some bait. They work really well.
Love it. So we're going to go meet up with Ben Rosenbach right now. We're going to talk tactics and tackle with him. And I'm going to throw this out there. I can almost bet you that he'll have a couple of other ideas outside of this. And that's one of the great things about this podcast is you're getting, Connor and John Martinis doing a fantastic job and have a lot of success out there. And so does Ben. And so it's always great to learn. And that's what we're going to do. So before we go out and meet Ben, John Sporting Goods, you're stocked. I saw the other day, I was in there the other day, and it looks like you got your hook section, you got tons of hook inventory. You're ready for winter blackmouth. So if you need any gear, get down there, load up on anything you need there. But you've been doing some events, and I like it. You did a Scotty downrigger repair event the other night, which was just awesome. Yeah. And, I had my son go so he could learn. And it's crazy the amount of value that you're providing to us anglers. Yeah. We're going to have a winter blackmouth, kind of like what we did with, summer Chinook and coho, but we'll have a winter blackmouth social or class coming up too. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed or you're not one of your subscribers, because you get actual additional benefits, go to the John Sporting Goods Facebook page, and you can actually be a subscriber or a partner. Tell us about what that is.
Yeah, so subscribers, they get free access to these classes. They get all of this stuff on the desk right here. You'd get 20% off. Rods, you get 5% off. Reels, you get 5% off. And if you're buying Scotty downriggers, you get 5% off too. So you get a discount all year. It's $10 a month. You get access to all of these classes for free. You get discounts on gear. It's definitely worth it for sure. I see the same guys 2 or 3 times a week. You're spending $100 each time. You're saving 20% on that. You start really getting your money back. Yeah.
Well, and you get access to these events for free. Oftentimes, I sponsor the happy hours. You can come out, have a drink, and hang out with some fishing guides, some anglers, and just learn. I've picked up so many great tips by just being at those events and being a part of those. And so, so you go. Obviously like the John Sporting Goods page, but you could be a subscriber and get additional benefits there. And then stay tuned for information on the winter blackmouth class.
Once we find out the date, then we're going to figure out what the water's doing that day. And you're going to have, specific game plans from me. Hopefully we can get Ben Rosenbach there. We can get a bunch of these guys that are going to be fishing on the opener. And you'll see what they're going to do as far as what the water's doing and what the game plan is. It'll be a huge advantage to you. You're going to be fishing almost just like we're going to be fishing, or you can be.
Yep. I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
March, April cannot come fast enough. All right, let's head out. Let's go meet Ben, and we'll keep the learning coming. All right. Thanks for coming in here, Connor.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
So we hunted down Mr. Ben Rosenbach. We got him at his shop today. In fact, check this out real quick. Well, he's working on a couple of boats. Actually, he's working on a few boats. A little fiberglass, a Raider. But this is the shop. This is Mixed Metals Outdoors. This is where he gets it done. And this is Mr. Ben's sled. But let's go talk to him about blackmouth fishing. Cool. So it looks like in your shop you're working on a couple of bait tables. What are you doing over there for the Raider?
Bait station, diamond plate up and down the gunnels, roof rack, just simple Puget Sound necessities. The roof racks are really nice. Crab pots, life rafts, just to get them up out of the way, especially at these fisheries that we have both fishing and crabbing going on at the same time. You see guys trying to run around downriggers with crab pots stacked on the deck of their boat. And it's very uncomfortable.
Wait till you see the bait station that he just built for me. He built one for my last boat. We went one up, a couple inches bigger on this one. It's getting powder coated right now, so stay tuned for that. But this guy can make anything out of metal, hence Mixed Metals Outdoors.
Yeah.
But just wanted to take you on a quick tour of his shop. But let's talk today blackmouth fishing. A lot of people know Ben. I know Ben as just a river dog. The guy is born and raised up north on the Stilly. The guy can fish the rivers like no other. Rivers around here in the North Puget Sound is seasonal. And there's a time and a season for it. But what people may not realize, and this is why I wanted to have him on here, Ben is one of the best anglers on the Puget Sound. In fact, back when we had a blackmouth fishery and had the blackmouth derbies, we already talked about this with Connor, Ben was winning the doggone derby every single year. So he's got this down. It's in his backyard. He guides out there. He'll be guiding out there, this spring and this summer. And so to kind of put a cherry on top of this Sunday with this blackmouth podcast, I figured, Connor talked about some of his favorite, setups and tactics. We're going to hear it from the guide himself. So let's walk through. Okay, so it's Area 10.
It is Area 10,
a couple locations that you'd be fishing.
Everybody's going to be Jeff Head, Apple Tree, oil docks, pretty much anywhere you get concentrations of bait. Everybody gets really focused, honed in on, hyper-focused, I guess it may be, on those 3 areas. But just about anywhere you find large concentrations of bait, you're gonna find these blackmouth. They're feeders, right? They live here. They chase the bait around. They basically live with the bait. So as the bait washes from one spot to the next, they're following with it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
We've caught these things out in 300 feet of water in the middle of the shipping lane.
Yeah, that's what Connor was talking about when you're running that. For example, Jeff Head. If you start at 90 to 100, you make a pass and you just don't see anything. Move out 20 feet. Move out 20 feet. Next thing you know, you could be off the bar in 200-300 feet of water.
Exactly, and it's intimidating because we spend so much of our time in that 80 to 120 foot range, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's comfortable there. 200 feet is not that far.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. If you took a rope and stretched it out in your driveway 200 feet, you're going to be like, that's not that far.
Yeah.
It's really not. It fishes a little bit differently when you get downriggers stretched out that far, right? Because you've got currents and all that kind of stuff. I really stick to the 2 downrigger rule when I get over 150 feet, just because you run that 3rd downrigger, things are going to get tangled up. Right? I don't care who you are.
Well, and out there on Jeff Head too, you might be fishing
cross
east,
currents.
west, and
If you're running the downriggers for it, I highly suggest 20-pound downrigger balls when you're winter blackmouth fishing. I mean, it's changed so much. I mean, we used to do all this up in Saratoga, right? It was all up in Saratoga for the most part. Shallower waters, less currents. Now we're forced to go down south, out in the middle of the shipping lanes, basically. I mean, I know it's Jeff Head and Apple Tree and oil docks. You're off the edges of it, but we're in the shipping lanes, right? We're not in enclosed waters anymore. So it's really kind of changed a lot,
So let's do this. Let's take a real quick look. I'm going to pan over some of his gear. We're going to go behind us. He has 2 rods set up, like if he was going to go out today fishing. But let's take a look at some gear where he's going to walk you through how he sets up these different setups, and then we'll talk a little bit more tactics. So let's take a look at this. All right, so Ben, what are we looking at here, flasher-wise and then spoons?
So the flashers, as I've said before, I'm a big shooter guy. This one's been beat to the death, but this actual color, this oaky big shooter here, it's glow on one side, reflective on the other with the chartreuse edges, is probably in my boat. If I'm in Puget Sound probably 6 months of the year. I'd say 80% of the time, this is on one of the rods. This has been a really consistent flasher. It's my red racer, right? John's got the red racer. I've got this. These are from West Coast Tackle. These new chrome dip series. I really like the chrome dip flashers. They especially on sunny days, they throw off a lot of light. West Coast has actually come out with some really cool new patterns this year. I don't have them in my hands yet, but I'm working on Connor with that. This black flasher on sunny days has been absolutely money. I don't understand it, but it does it, right?
Let's look at these
Spoon-wise, I'll show you on the one rod I don't have out here. I'm a big fan of the Coyote spoons. They're kind of old school. Your 3.0 Kingfishers, right? And the White Lightning. The Skinny G's have really taken a place. They really imitate our Puget Sound bait really, really well. Anything white, chartreuse. Obviously, the white, we're imitating our herring. You got to remember too, the reason these other spoons work is we have anchovies and sand lance both in Puget Sound. And I would say 50% of the time when we cut these fish open, they don't just have herring in them. You know, I would say 60% of their diet is candlefish, right? They're everywhere in Puget Sound. They pop, they bloom, whatever you want to call it. That's why these fish, when you pull them up, they have all those scars on their face because they're down there digging in the sand, digging into rocks, chasing these candlefish around. Okay. So that's why these skinnier baits, for me anyway, especially with winter blackmouth, really seem to trip their trigger.
Love it. Okay.
One thing I want to mention too, and I know Connor talks about it, and everybody's got their favorite, but your hook choice is very important, especially because we're running, I mean, this one isn't pinched yet, but we're running barbless, right? So big hooks, a good Siwash. This is a Mustad 1084 big gun Siwash. Okay. Probably the stickiest Siwash that I've found, plain and simple. Great big huge return, as you can see on the hook. Plus it has a tremendous offset to it that once these fish get stuck, barbless or not, as long as you keep tension on them, it's game over.
So what is that hook?
It's a Mustad 1084 is the number, big gun Siwash. Okay,
I'll put a link to that in the description. So,
I run mostly 2/0 and 3/0, and I run these things on everything. Steelhead plugs, coho spinners, anything that I'm gonna put a single Siwash on, there's probably 2,000 of them in boxes in my house right now. Really, really sticky hook. I really like the design of them. They've got a big eye on them, so they're really easy to get on and off. Hooks are the cheapest part of everything you see here. Don't get cheap with them, right?
Okay, so behind us, I'm going to go put the camera down here in a sec, but behind us we've got your rods. Let's take a look at these.
So all my downrigger rods are the same. I probably own 10 of these rods. This is a G Loomis E6X. Yes, I am a pro light guy. Plain and simple. I'm in absolute love with the pro lights. One thing with high composite rods, they don't handle real well in the downriggers. With those high composites, the load and the beating that we put on these rods, it's just really hard on them. They're really easy to break. And when I'm on I'm running downriggers 130 days a year. I don't need, to be snapping rods all the time. ProLite makes a great downrigger rod. It's their takedown series. There's nothing wrong with them. I just like something a little bit more durable for my downriggers. This is a G Loomis E6X. It's a 10.6.
Is it a 1263?
1265.
65.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's a 10 to 40.
Okay.
I like the 10.5 foot rods just because once you get them loaded up in the downrigger and that clip pops, you've got that much more rod to help pick up that slack in between, right? I run a 60-pound braid. This is just the old Power Pro green. I don't run high-vis line in my downriggers. I run about a 15-foot, 40-pound monofilament bumper up top. 2 reasons for that. Getting it in and out of the clip, right? We all hate braiding. We know it pops out of the clips. And then a little bit of stretch, right? You get these fish next to the boat. They're getting spunky and flopping around. It's just a little bit of forgiveness next to the boat. Plus, when I'm looking in the water, I'm watching anglers fight gear, I'm running the boat, all that kind of stuff. When I see monofilament, it's time to find a net. Right?
That's a great tip right there. When you see mono,
it's time to go looking for the net. So, and then, winter blackmouth are a little bit different than our typical Puget Sound Chinook in the summertime. This is another flasher I think everybody should have in their boat. This has been a really good flasher, especially for Chinook. It didn't do as well with the coho for whatever reason, but this is one of the best Chinook flashers in Puget Sound or even out in the Pacific. So I'm going to run a little bit longer leader.
I noticed that.
And reason being is we got a little bit colder water. And we have fish that are feeding. There's not a lot of competition, right? I mean, they're not really down there fighting over a food source. Our whole purpose of the flasher is to act like another fish, darting through the bait fish, right?
Okay.
You get your bait a little bit further behind it, dangling behind it, they're thinking, hey, that's one he missed, right? This is what I think in my mind anyway,
Okay.
right? This is an easy target for them back here a little bit further away. It gets too close to that flasher, now they're starting to get a little territorial, right? And this could actually spook them once in a while. So I'll run a little bit longer flasher, or a little bit longer leader. This is a 40-pound Seagar STS, right? This right here, in my opinion, is the best spoon in Puget Sound for winter blackmouth. This is a Coyote cop car. It's 1,000 years old.
Is that glow?
Nope.
Nope.
This
Just
is
UV?
not a. This is just a regular chrome back.
Okay.
Coyote flicker, little flicker
Yeah.
spinner down here on the bottom. This is before they changed the paint on them. This has put more salmon in more people's boats in Puget Sound than anything else I've got in my arsenal. Plain and simple. As much as I like all this neat new stuff that we got, and it works, you know, a lot of things catch fish.
Yeah.
If we get to a point where we're struggling, I'm going to this.
Yeah.
I'm putting this in the water and I'm leaving it there because I know it's going to
So that's a
get
new
big.
tip. So you heard Connor talk a lot about the skinny G, and then the tried and true John Martinis special, right?
Yep.
So the Coyote spoon, I know Connor has those down there.
Yep.
I've seen them. So okay,
Yep.
cool.
And again, down to that, this is that 3/0 big gun Siwash, right?
Lots of greens.
Lots of greens,
lots
chartreuse
of greens
for
and chartreuse
Yep.
on the
the blackmouth for whatever reason.
okay.
It
Okay.
just kind of, I don't know, trips the trigger. It works, right?
So I'm
We've been
seeing
running them for
the other
years.
one behind you. Same thing.
Yep.
You're going a little clear, but
Yep.
what chartreuse, red. You got a little glow on the backside as well.
This actually has glow on it, yes, on the backside.
Okay.
So does that flasher. Early morning, I don't know what that sound is. The glow is really important.
Okay.
Especially early mornings. You know, we've got dark overcast skies most of the time. Everything's exactly the same, 60-pound main line, 40-pound bumper, 40-pound leader, down to that same big gun Siwash. This, speaking of the skinny G's, is another one
I haven't
that
seen that one yet.
I've
Okay.
really got attached to this spoon. We caught
Okay.
a ton of fish up with it up in Canada. I caught a ton of coho with it, ton of Chinook last year.
Okay.
Been a really good skinny G. I'll give you guys a good little
And
look
that looks
at
like
that
it has
one.
glow on the back
Yep.
too. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
haven't
This is
seen
a
that
double
one.
glow.
Okay.
So, and the nice
Wow.
part about all of these spoons is being able to work them over.
Yeah.
Right. Give them your own little. We've talked about that before. Your own little
Yeah.
tweak, your own little bend. This is another big shooter, right? Just another flasher. This is a straight UV blank.
Okay.
Another one that I've really got to get attached to.
I love that. Okay, so we've got gear. I love the tactic that you gave in regards to how they're feeding. I think that's important.
Yep.
I learned a couple new lures that probably need to throw in my tackle box. I'm a big skinny G fan. It works.
Yep.
But the cool thing about talking to fishing guys is they get paid for the experience. They get paid again for providing a great experience, and that's putting fish in the boat. And so, like you heard Ben say, on days that it's a little bit tougher, you just heard what he would go to, what he would use. Now, we talked a little about this on the podcast, Connor and I did. Encounters with smaller blackmouth. What is a couple of your tactics there? If you get out there and you're just hooking up and you're catching way too many shakers.
So that's why you don't see coho killers here.
Okay.
Coho killers work great. A lot of guys like them. We call them fish finders because if there's a fish down there, whether it's 6 inches or 15 pounds, they're more than likely going to grab it. I try to stick with the bigger profiles.
Yep.
Another thing we didn't discuss is running bait. I run a lot of bait. Again, these are feeder blackmouth. These are feeding constantly, almost nonstop.
Okay.
I really like anchovies.
Okay.
Not only do we have an anchovy population in Puget Sound, the anchovies is about a close of a look-alike to a sand lance or candlefish that you're going to find, right? Really thin profile, nice big long body to it. You can throw them in a head. They're really easy to fish. They create a nice tight spin. Also run herring too, right? Almost always have one rod with a spoon on, one rod with a bait, and see what starts happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
What are your thoughts on plugs? Running plugs out there?
They work. I don't do a lot of it. I'm more in the summertime for a little bit more aggressive fish. I know a lot of, my grandpa was a really good blackmouth fisherman. That's almost all he ran.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. The hard part about plugs, you got to fish them at a different speed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to fish plugs, you need to fish plugs.
Yep.
And I'm just not as partial to it. If I get into shallower waters, we're up into 80, 90, 100 feet of water. I might mess around with one on a third rod.
Okay.
Usually I'll go to a cut plug or something on the third rod first, something without a flasher. But they work really well. When we start struggling, the first two things I start changing, leader length and size of my baits.
Okay.
And
so based off of what you have right now, it looks like you have a little bit longer leader.
Yep.
If you're struggling, you're seeing fish, you're seeing bait, are you gonna shorten?
I'm gonna get longer first.
You're gonna get longer first.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna get longer first. See what happens. I mean, if you got to go shorter, you go shorter.
Okay.
It's impossible to look into the mind of these fish. It really is. And all you can do is count on your own experience and play the percentages.
Yeah.
Last year, as much as I hate to say it, the little 2-inch kingfishers were what we're doing
little
it
guys,
for.
huh?
Yeah, and the bubble too. We were getting them in the bubble. Those spoons are only this long.
Yeah.
But that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it had to do with the size of the bait or what was happening.
So what about sun versus cloud cover? Does that change your approach to fishing, whether you got direct sunlight or an overcast day?
No, it might change, my approach to what colors we're putting in the water, but that's about it.
So bring us up to speed on that and help us better understand that. Let's say it's an overcast, cloudy day. Are you going to go more glow? Are you going to go, what colors are you going to lean toward?
I fish the glow in the morning, then I go away from it once the sun is fully up, whether it's cloudy or not.
Okay.
Overcast days, I'm going to stick with my whites and chartreuses.
Okay.
We start getting sunny days, I'm going to go to things more like the
blues
herring
and greens,
aids,
yeah. Okay.
the blues and greens,
Okay.
blacks, stuff like that.
Okay.
And basically, if you start, there's a consistency to the water in Puget Sound too, right? Some days we'll go out there, it'll be crystal clear. Some days you'll go out there, it'll kind of have that algae bloom to it.
Yeah.
One thing that people need to understand, it's not just what they see, but what the profile that spoon is casting by blocking sunlight. So sometimes you'll get into that murky water and people think, well, I need to put down the brightest sparkly thing I can find. It's not true, right? Just like when the rivers get muddy, we go to blacks. Just because it blocks out more sunlight and creates a profile.
Got it.
Right? Eyes are on the top of their head. They're looking right up at the sunlight. You've got something kind of shiny and white up there. It might not block out enough sun for them to know it's there. You put something black or blue or that's going to block out that UV, they're going to see it.
To see the outline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's smart.
Yep.
Okay.
So
you're booking, it's February now. You're booking for, I'm here in March, I'm here in April.
I'm here in April.
Okay.
I'm here in April 1st. I am steelhead fishing till the end of March.
Yeah.
One way or another, it's booked. I've got like 3 or 4 days open between now and then. I'm hoping for April 1st.
Okay.
For one, it just kind of sets my business up, right?
Yep.
Two, come April, we've got springers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? So it opens up opportunity for some bigger fish to where we're not just fishing on our local blackmouth. We're also fishing on inbound springers. So I'll at least now book that first 2 weeks of April.
Cool.
Hoping that our encounters stay down and we can get the whole month of April would be, ideal, but we'll see.
So we've got April, May, Blackmouth. Then you go end of May, the bubble opens. I know you spent a lot of time on the bubble. I mean, that's an easy run from you from the Everett Marina. I want to encourage you. We're going to do another podcast coming up on the bubble. But those are some big fish. I lost a fish. I had a fish break the leader last year out there that I don't even want to guess how big it was. It was big. And I know you had a great season out there. So Blackmouth's going to be great. Jury's out on going out and catching blackmouth to harvest and to eat. Do you like eating winter blackmouth?
I do. I mean, I'm a coho guy, right?
I
I love my coho. Winter blackmouth, they eat really well. I'm a coho guy.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they taste like Puget Sound Chinook.
Yeah.
Right. They're delicious.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be a fish snob, right? But they are really delicious. I just want to encourage everybody, try and kill mature fish. I know it's hard. You spend a long day out there scratching away and you wind up with a couple 24 inchers and you're like, none of us are starving to death. I mean, I know, yes, bring your fish home. Absolutely. I'm all for catch and kill. Just try to kill mature fish just to kind of help secure our future. It's really important. I mean, it'd be really nice, if we were going out and killing 6 and 8 pounders instead of 3 and 4 pounders. So,
well, take some of your tips, bigger profile, be picky, go out there, obviously have fun. Ben is open for April and May blackmouth. Like I said earlier, then you got the bubble and you go right into, you got May, June, and then you're right into summer Chinook in July, August. So we'll keep the content coming. Hey, thanks for letting me come out and crash your shop. I mean,
sorry you had to come out here. It's a busy time of year.
Yeah, well, we got a little snow last night. You guys got snow here. I don't. But anyways, thanks for your time, brother. And we'll see you guys out on the water, okay?